Hey there, welcome to another episode of Hiker Homily. This is going to be, well, I hope it's kind of an uplifting one, but it's going to start sad, at least for me. Because I don't even know if I mentioned it on this channel, because if you follow me on Instagram or you're one of my friends who follow me on Facebook, you already know. But Peter Gotcher, who is a man I've known since kindergarten. Seriously, we met in kindergarten. He's been my best friend my whole life. Passed away in March on my birthday. And he passed away due to liver failure. And part of that was due to the fact that he was diabetic. There were some other complications there that I'm not going to get into, but that did contribute to it. And it was hard because I've known him for a long time. And it got harder because a couple of days later, because I'm on blood pressure medications and things like that, my doctor checks my blood levels now and then just to make sure things are going okay with my own kidneys and liver and stuff. Because one of the things I'm on is a beta blocker and stuff like that. They're keeping an eye on it. Well, that test came in a few days after I heard about Pete's passing. And lo and behold, diabetes was the diagnosis. I had it. So that combination coming so swiftly after his passing really hit me hard. So I attacked it right away. I started doing research even before I even was able to see my doctor. The system I'm in is an HMO, and it's pretty good. I'm not going to diss it. It has its drawbacks, but it, for the most part, has been very good. And so a lot of it was done electronically. You know, the test results came in, and I can check them on the app for my HMO. And my doctor gets a hold of me and says, "Yep, your H1C is this. Your A1C is this, and it's diabetes. You have diabetes." So, here's basically what I want you to do, and then I want you to make an appointment 3 weeks from now, so we can check your levels and see how you're doing with managing it. And so one of the things he had is as part of my prescription, he sent me a blood monitor and all the stuff you need for the blood monitor, the lances and the little strips and everything, in order to check my blood twice a day. And the little machine keeps a record of that. Plus I have an app for it that keeps a record of it, and things like that. So I started doing that and of course cut carbs out of my diet. Not 100%, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But yes, definitely lowered my carb intake a lot. Did a lot of research on what were better foods to eat and things like that. Signed up for several courses through my HMO. One was just a basic, so you've got diabetes in you type of, thing, class. And another one was by an actual licensed nutritionist about, what you should be eating and not eating and how you should be eating, very important, as a diabetic. So I started doing all that kind of stuff. But one thing that was always in the back of my mind is hiking. It's one of the things I've done most of my life. I've had a few years where I just wasn't able to do it, especially when my career was in full swing and things like that, especially working nights and stuff like that. It was just too tough to get out there. But for the most part, my whole life I've been hiking. And what are the kinds of things that we hikers love to do, especially when we're backpacking long distance trails and things like that? We stuff ourselves with carbs, right? So what does this mean? Can I not hike anymore? If I do hike, am I going to have to just do weird things with what I eat? So when I finally got a chance to see my doctor, I was able to ask him that question. What do I need to do? Number one, to just kind of put it out there, 3 weeks after the diagnosis, I see the doctor, and I have my little machine, and he looks at it, and he is very happy with my numbers. I had done a pretty good job keeping my numbers, my glucose numbers, right where they're supposed to be every day. An occasional spike, which he said is a live and learn thing. Now because you're supposed to be keeping track of what you ate that day and stuff like that. Now you know that is a food that can spike your stuff. So either you have to do certain things, and I learned from the nutritionist some stuff to do to try and mitigate that spike, or that is a food you need to avoid. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Hiking and diabetes. You can do it. I'm no pro at it, I'll tell you right now, because obviously I was only diagnosed in March, and here it is June. So, 3 whole months I'm a pro at it. Not really. But I have been doing, because that's what I do, research. I said a bad word. I researched the heck out of it, and was surprised to find out that it's not about, again, let me make sure everyone understands. I have type 2 diabetes, okay? For those of you who don't know the difference between type 1 and type 2. Type 2 diabetes means my body has not completely given up. It still makes insulin. Unfortunately, it doesn't either make it in the right amount, or the wrong time, or when it does make it, it's not very efficient at using it because of what I'm putting in my body. Something like that, so that my glucose levels get too high. Or you could have the opposite problem, and you drive your glucose levels up, and then suddenly they dive to a point that they're too low because you amped them so high, and then they just like that, just dive. So there's ways to prevent that with diet. Now, I am on a medication, but the doctor did say that it's very possible a lot of people who have good success managing it with their diet eventually get off that medication. They still have diabetes, he says. You can't get rid of diabetes. Diabetes can go into remission, and as long as you watch what you eat and stuff, you can keep it that way. But you always will have diabetes from that point forward. So something to think about there. But he said that, my first 3 weeks that I controlled it that quickly is a good indication that I'm one of those ones that maybe eventually no medication will be needed, and if I stay with, dietary control, exercise, that will be enough. And that's one of the things he said about, hiking, you can do hiking, absolutely. And I asked him, well, do I need to do anything special? I said, normally, I've always got like a little snack with me, cheese or nuts or something like that. Do I need to carry anything special when I'm hiking, just in case? He goes, no. If you're doing it smartly, and it sounds like you are, then you're okay. Yes, have a little food with you. That way, if you feel like something's going on, you need it, there you go, you've got it. And you were doing that before diabetes, so awesome. And he says, and just make sure you're staying hydrated. That's the kind of thing that us hikers are supposed to be doing anyway, right? Right. Okay. And then I asked him, okay, but on backpacking trips, most of our food is ramen and rice and just easy stuff like that. He goes, yeah, you may have to look some things up to change. He says, but there's stuff out there now. And he was right when I did the research. There are low-carb noodles out there that you can use. There's rice that is lower in carbs. And he says being diabetic doesn't mean never eating carbs again. Your body needs carbs. Carbs are our fuel. We have to have it. It's when you spike yourself with too many carbs. And that's what the nutritionist explained to us in the class. When you look at a plate, that this is the perfect plate for a diabetic, there was rice on it or pasta. It's just not the entire plate full of pasta or half the plate. It's a quarter up here of rice or pasta, and then a protein, and some really good green vegetables, maybe a salad before dinner. That's what your diabetic plate should look like. You don't have to deny yourself completely certain things. You just don't want to eat so much of it. So it's portion control more than cutting things out. It was a valuable lesson for me, and it has worked for me in many ways. Not only is my glucose level down, I'm happy to report, my average is, I think now my 90-day average is 111. That's not bad for a diabetic, huh? Because they say over 200 is you're in the danger zone. Your blood pressure is, or blood pressure. I'm so used to saying that because I've had that problem for decades. Your blood sugar is way too high if you're just cruising around in the 200s. So if you're averaging, 111s, 115s, hey, that's pretty good. I'm doing a good job, and the doctor says I am, and things like that. But not only that, because I am controlling not just what I eat, but how much I eat. I have since March lost about 38 pounds. I started at in March I was 300 pounds, and I am down to 262. Hey, that's pretty cool. And it's still going. We had to, and I have to tell you, the medicine I'm on really messed my gut up a little bit. I went through several nights of just being upset, talked to the doctor, and he goes, well, I gave you that dosage because that's the beginning dosage, but you're taking those 2 pills at night because that's the best way to do it. But it seems like because your diet is doing a good job controlling things, split up the dose. Take, half in the morning, half at dinner time. Always take it with food. And that has worked. My stomach has felt much better because I knew that was one of the side effects. And he said, yes, it was. It's a side effect of that. So splitting the dosage up through the day has worked. And that was the only side effect I was having thus far. And wow, 38 pounds lost, and it's still losing. And I feel really good. So there it is. It can be done, and I think I'll be doing other videos on it, more on the trail specific stuff, because I have to kind of dial in when I do go backpacking. What am I going to bring with me? What am I going to eat? And there are things I can do it. I know I can do it. Fortunately, Spam is low carb, so hey, I'm okay there. I can have my Spam. It's not low sodium. I do have to watch that, but there is a low sodium Spam. But it is lower in carbs. I can do it. So I will be doing more, but I did just kind of want to put that out there. Number one, Pete, I miss you, bro. I love you. And I might have mentioned him a few times on the channel. That's because for the longest time he was not just my best friend, but he was my hiking partner. We grew up together, obviously, on the streets of Eastside San Jose, and then I moved away to Pleasanton, which only was a half hour, 45 minutes away from San Jose. But when you're a 13-year-old, that's an insurmountable distance because you can't drive, and neither of our parents could just get us there all the time. So through most of high school, I had made new friends in my town and stuff. Through most of high school, we kind of drifted apart, because again, this was before the days of instant internet calls, and this was the days of long distance telephone, and you had to write a letter, and us guys were no good at writing letters. I did when I met my eventually wife. I wrote her letters all the time, but Pete and I didn't write each other letters a lot. And yeah, we're not going to use a lot of long distance. So we kind of had a distance there during our high school years. But then when I went to college in San Jose State, out of a whim, I decided to go to the old neighborhood, see if Pete's parents were still living in the house. And when I knocked on the door, he's the one who answered. And we both looked at each other and went, whoa, because, we changed, we're older. But the friendship was like that. We were right back at it because we had that long history since kindergarten. And through that whole time, college, he ended up going transferring to San Jose State where I was and where my wife-to-be was, and we all became very good friends. Great friends group we had. And some of the things we would all do together was backpacking and hiking. So we used to do it all the time. He was a great hiking buddy. I miss him a lot. I miss you, Pete. But diabetes. Something else I'm taking on for the all hiking stuff, and I'll be willing to put it out there. The more I learn, the more I'll put here for people who are interested, because it can hit any of us. And I have to admit, I'm not blaming anybody but myself, because years ago my numbers were in a range where my physician told me, you are what we call pre-diabetic. You need to just kind of chill and your body will find an equilibrium there. You don't want to push it too high, because once you've gone too high, that's it. Your body has diabetes. It's a disease and you're stuck with it. I didn't listen. I went years messing around. But the biggest thing for me that has stopped now, and again, this was all because like getting the news that, Pete had told us he had his diabetes completely under control. Everything was fine. No. It really was a contributing factor to what finally brought him to his end. But one of the biggest things for me is the snacking. And when you're diabetic, one of the big things the nutritionist suggested, and a whole bunch of the research I've done so far, is you need to have an end line. You eat dinner and things like that. A couple of hours later, you want to check your blood sugar after 2 hours to see how it processed that dinner, because after 2 hours, it should be through your system, at least that in a certain way for blood sugar. And you should be within this certain range. If you're too high, then there's something going on. You're not controlling it. You either had too much to eat, the wrong kind of thing, and you got to figure that out. But draw a line that after a certain point in the evening, you do not eat. No eating. And that's really the one hard and fast rule I've discovered, because there is no such thing as do not ever eat this ever. No. Do not ever eat this ever. No. You can do it now and then. Just understand what it might do to your body, and there are things you can do to mitigate. If you're going to eat this, then also eat this with it, because all that fiber will help keep it from spiking fast. It'll make a more gradual increase and then gradual back into a control zone type of thing. So there's just ways to do that. You don't have to just say, no, I'm not going to eat that. But yes, to the one hard fast rule is after a certain amount of time, no eating. And that was a big thing for me, because for me, that was my thing. I'm a night owl. I stay up late sometimes. I'll watch horror movies. I review them online on Letterboxd, things like that. And sometimes when I'm doing that, in between movie number 1 and movie number 2, I'm in the kitchen. And it's not really a snack. I'll have like an entire hot dog, like a meal. Hot dog with a bun, mustard and everything on it. Or a whole half box of Cheez-Its. Or, big snacks or whole meals at like 11 o'clock at night. And then a couple hours later, I go to bed. It's not a healthy lifestyle, and that's what eventually drove me over the line. So just doing that, I think, has been a huge help. So I'm pushing 20 minutes here. It's one of the longer hiker homilies I've done. So if there's two things I wanted to get across, is that diabetes isn't the end of the road. And there's people out there who know this. I know there's diabetics that are out on the trail all the time. They know. They're like, well, duh, Todd. But there's a lot of people who don't know much about diabetes. And so here we go. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. But it's not the end of the road. There can be hiking, and you can pretty much do it the way you've been doing it, especially if you have type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a little different. And I don't know a whole bunch about that, so I'm not going to pontificate on it. But what I do know about type 2 diabetes, controllable if you really put in the effort, and it doesn't stop you from doing the fun stuff you like, even if they're physical activity like hiking and stuff like that. In fact, that's probably a good thing for you to do, because that does help your blood sugar stay level when you're exercising and things like that. And number 2, I miss you, Pete. And we'll meet again, bro. And we'll do some trails up there together. All right? You guys, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you much. And you know you can always comment things down below or get a hold of me at hikingforhealthca@gmail.com. Other than that, I will catch you next time.